Welcome everyone to our second class of the day on how to make a family history video. And Elder Tanner, it's your screen to share.
I'd like to welcome everyone here today. We're going to be talking about how to make a family history video. Just a few words of introduction. Being able to do videos like we have, see the millions and millions of videos on YouTube and movies and fantastic movies made entirely now digitally. It's been developing for many years, and over the years, at various times, I have tried to get involved with making videos, and it always turned out to be overly frustrating because the technology still hadn't arrived. The window that I took during when everyone was kind of off at a vacation from visiting different things during COVID, then I took the opportunity to spend a year learning all of the things that I didn't know about doing videos. So that was my probably third or fourth attempt to get involved. And since then, I have been pretty much involved consistently in doing videos, which has been what I think is probably one of the better ways of connecting with people. And I think we need to fundamentally understand that even a family history video is a creative process. It's a matter of creating something that will communicate and help and support the understanding that people have of their family, of their ancestors, of whatever the focus is of that particular video. And so you have to get your kind of creative juices going and get involved in thinking about how it could be presented in a way that would be, let's say, more than just a cut dry, stand there and talk type of presentation. And if you think about it, creating a video is visual storytelling. It takes some focus and some time, not just to think about it, but to think about how it's going to be presented in a way that creates the message you want to communicate. So basically, we're looking at what a video is, and to get into the concept of what a video is a series of images, and the term used is clips, and that have a logical progression. I have been basically fan of movies since I was first could have enough time to walk to the theater and take myself to a theater and sit there and watch them, and probably have viewed tens of maybe hundreds of thousands of videos and video clips over the years, maybe millions, I would guess. And the concept of a video is that you move from one image to the next image. And now that we have digital movies, digital animated movies that you can take with your phone, then those movie clips can be integrated into longer movie productions. And so we not only have still images, but we have animated or movie images, and they can be used to put together into a movie or video. And I'm just going to call them videos from now on and not use the movie term. So if we do a static interview with no camera movement, it's not really a movie or a video. It's just a lecture. When we're doing a PowerPoint presentation, in a sense like the one that I'm showing here, which is narrated and with PowerPoint images, it is possible, and you'll see a little bit of animation here in this particular presentation, but it is not a video. It's a video when you put it online, because then it's a narration with changing pictures. It could be a video, and I could be doing the same thing by having made a video presentation instead of a PowerPoint presentation, and have pre-recorded and have a soundtrack. And some of the videos that I've done up on the BYU Family History Library YouTube channel are videos, like the instructive videos for how to operate the machinery, things like that. So it's kind of a continuum. There's not a clear cut and dried difference between a video and a presentation like this, a PowerPoint presentation, but you can move either direction. You can go back to just be strictly a presentation, or you can move and make it more video based and have even more action than simply changing. But to begin with your family history project here, to do a video, you need to choose a topic. You've got to have some very focused idea. You can't say my ancestry, you've got tens of thousands of ancestors. And even if you don't know them all, there's that many out there. And in many cases, like what's happening with the large websites like Ancestry and My Heritage, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of matches on other people as relatives. So that, it's got to be a little more focused than just kind of a general topic. And I kind of put together some suggested ideas, what kinds of things that you might want to think about. So how about exploring the roots of your family and discuss the country or region from where your ancestors originated? How about tracing the journey of your ancestors as they migrated to different places? Perhaps highlight unique traditions, customs, or celebrations that have passed down through generations in your family. How about discussing the various occupations and professions that your ancestors pursued? How about these choices influence their lives? Investigate if your family has any connections to significant historical events, such as wars, revolutions, or notable movements. Focus on an individual who served in one of the military actions. Share interesting stories and legends that have been passed down in your family, whether they're based on historical events or personal experiences. Visit or discuss the family homes and historical residents associated with your ancestors. Share lessons, values, or wisdom imparted by your ancestors that continue to guide your family today. Lists could go on indefinitely. There's just no end to the kinds of things to do. So here's the list again for reference. And when you're watching a video like this, if you're doing it on when it's not live, you can do two things. If it's live, you can always have your phone sitting next to you and pick it up real quick and take a picture of the screen. But if you're in YouTube or wherever the video happens to be parked, you can then stop the video and take another picture of the screen or do a screenshot of the screen. So those are the kinds of things that help you to preserve the information that comes out in a PowerPoint or video production. So once you have given yourself this idea that I'm going to create this video and it's going to be about my ancestors and who settled, I'm going to give an example, who settled in the little Colorado River Valley of northern Arizona. I'm going to do a video on that. Then I need to just determine the structure and storyline. And I need at least a rough outline to guide the content creation process. One of the things that happens as I'm doing a video is that I almost always, create the entire script, the whole thing, before I even start taking pictures or accumulating information, because that script will be the guideline that tells me what I'm going to have to go out and get pictures of. You can do it the other way around. You can start collecting the content, but you need to have some idea of where you're going to end up, because you'll spend a lot of time getting a huge amount of information and then finding you can only use a small part of it. So start by collecting as much information as possible about your specific topic, if you're going to do that topic. And then you're going to have to make a decision as to how long this video is going to be and how much information you actually want to put in it. For example, if you're doing an educational short kind of, this is how to do a subject, that kind of format, it lends itself to a video that's like no longer than 10 to 11 minutes. If you're involved in a class and you're intending to provide information which will be used over a period of time, rather than simply looking at it to find out how to open a jar or check your oil or whatever on your car, then you need to be more expansive, and an hour is about max. If you think about it, that's how long most of the subject classes are at the universities. You go to class for about an hour. Now, there are some exceptions, obviously, where you have a series of topics and classes, and they may go 2 or 3 hours, but they're generally more like a workshop or a more open forum. So if you think about the way the world works and the way that the experiences that you've had yourself in watching and being in classes and learning, then you can pretty well use that as the guideline to the kind of the maximum and minimums of what you're going to have to put in a video. So you got to start gathering photographs and understanding that generally speaking, you want to be as visual as possible. And if you're talking about your ancestors, you need to have pictures of the places and the people, and if they're available, and if they even exist. And if not, then there's other things that you can use that are contemporaneous types of things that do. I spend the significantly greater part of the time that I am getting my presentations done in finding the images to go along with the presentations. So you can also incorporate music, narration, or interviews with family members to enhance the storytelling. Always ensure that you have the necessary rights to use the music and images to avoid copyright issues. Now, if it's your own family history, maybe that isn't an issue so much, but you may still have a problem if you use photographs without permission, or if you incorporate various images and things from the internet that aren't clearly in the public domain. And it may take you some considerable effort to determine that any given image is in the public domain, unless you go to those websites that specifically only accumulate and only offer information that is in the public domain and can be reused without any kind of problem. A lot of times I will hear and see videos produced by a family member or someone else using contemporary music that is clearly copyright protected. You simply will limit where, if that isn't actually published online and only people to look at it is you and your family, that's not a problem. To some extent, it is still a problem, but it's not going to be a serious problem. But if you put that up online, chances are, for instance, on YouTube, if you upload a video to YouTube, it is always checked for copyright violations before they will be posted. And you just simply will get a message that say you have copyright violations, you cannot post this video. You need to get involved, obviously, if you have a pile of old photographs or you have something, some old artifacts, physical things that you are going to talk about, you're going to have to go find a way to convert those and digitize and locate any digital files that you already have. So there's a process here. And as I mentioned, this is really the most time-consuming, for at least in my part, the most time-consuming thing that is involved in doing any video production. Even a 5 or 10 minute video can take me hours of time in obtaining and processing images and trying to find those that will not violate somebody's copyright claim. If possible, conduct the interviews with family members and to get their perspectives and personal stories. As you go through this process, you may end up with 5 videos. You may end up with practically a full-time hobby or lifetime avocation of doing videos, because you may be able to find so much information. On the other hand, you may find so little information that what you do becomes invaluable to your family. So this is, and particularly with doing interviews with people. What kind of equipment are we talking about? Well, today we're not talking about spending very much money over what you may already have to do a video. There's two things that you can do an entire video today using a smartphone, an iPhone or an Android phone. And what is necessary in some cases, unless you are very experienced in taking movies on using a smartphone, I would suggest you find a way to have a tripod like this one that's shown in the picture. There's lots of these for sale out there for different sizes of smartphones. And this will help your videos more than anything else to start out with, the ones you have to take yourself, to avoid camera movement, because nothing speaks beginner unexperienced more than a video that bounces around. And that is really kind of the thing that really is not acceptable at all. So once you've gathered all your digital files, and by the way, they're generally referred to as assets, and make sure you put them all in one place on your hard drive. In other words, it needs to be in one folder. All of the video elements that you're going to use ultimately have to be in that folder. The reason being is that the video editing programs that you ultimately will be using will always require all of their assets to be in one folder and not in subfolders, not in just a big pile of everything, because the program itself will organize the assets, organize all the different photographs and movie clips and audio files and everything else that you create. But it's important to understand that principle, that it's not going to work to have them spread around on your computer, because the next time you try to open the program, it will say all of your video assets have been lost. Now, it's important at some point that you learn some of the jargon used in filmmaking. It'll be referred to by the programs. A jargon is a specialized language used by a group of people simply because they have something in common. It's a very wide-ranging term. When you go talk to doctors, then they use medical terms. That's their jargon. When you talk to lawyers, they have their law language, and that's jargon. All jargon is the term for those things that are used within a certain, let's say, from an occupation to an interest, or a group of people together, whoever lived together for any period of time or in the same area together, will develop a jargon. People in one religion to another will each have their own words they use and phrases they use that are almost meaningless to people outside the group. So this is something that's helpful, because any of the video editing programs that are out there that'll produce a movie that's got continuity and whatever are going to use these. So I mentioned one earlier, the clip. It's a segment, usually a short segment of a video. A cut is the transition from one shot to another. So the clip is one image or one video segment or whatever, and the cut is where it starts and where it ends. And so then there's a close-up, obviously, is when you zoom in and take a picture up that's close-up of a subject, like a person's face or whatever. They're always going to be talking about the resolution, clarity, and in the case of online digital videos, they're always going to be talking about the format, which is the way that it looks on the screen. And you get used to this from taking pictures with your camera. You turn your camera vertically, your smartphone vertically, and take a picture. You get an almost square image. If you turn it sideways, you get an elongated image. And then when you go to a movie theater, they show a wide image picture. And so all of that is the format of the video, and they come out in different formats. And this is something that you need to determine it ahead of time, how you're going to do the video and what format it's going to be in. YouTube has a standard format. So whatever you put on YouTube, it's going to be subject to that specific YouTube format. Continuity editing. Now, this is probably the part of the movie that is probably most difficult to continue to use. What we're looking to here is that not only is it going to tell a story that moves through the video for whatever kind of story it is, from how to do something to, something about somebody's life, and that it has a clear flow, but that it doesn't kind of jump around and make things hard and make it difficult. Some of the series and commercial movies, mysteries and some of the adventure dramas, dramatic things like the Marvel Comics things, they do a great job of using a lack of continuity to make their stories difficult to follow and bring the person closer into the visual. Don't try to do that with a story about your family. It won't work because people get so confused they just won't watch it. And a continuity error is when the scenes don't match across the shots. If you go from one clip to the next clip and the clips don't relate in some way or aren't sequential so that they make some kind of sense, you can do that. You can break it entirely and start a whole new subject. But in each type of shot, if you think about this and watch movies critically, you'll see that there's a straight progression. And if they want to change to go to some other part of the story or to a different location or to something else, then there is a definite break in the video. And so that definite break indicates that you're moving on to something else. But everything within the actual segment itself needs to have continuity. And the transitions are moving from one clip to the other. It's fascinating to, once you become aware of of transitions, to watch anything, any kind of video on YouTube videos or otherwise, and see how they've made their transitions from one shot to another. There are two major transitions. One is a blackout, where the video goes black for anything like a half a second to a second, and sometimes a little bit longer, but to maintain even a bigger break. But the next one is where it sort of fades from one to another. The fade out and the blackout are the two basic video transitions. Okay, so you have an idea. You've got a smartphone, and you've taken some short movies and have some ideas of what kinds of things you could do. You've gathered all your materials together. You've got it all put together. But about this time in the process, you need to learn what kind of editing software that you're going to use. This is where the advances, the tremendous assistance and advances have occurred in movie production. And it's only when it reached this level that normal people that weren't involved in Hollywood and other places of making commercial movies had software and had the capability of creating a product that looked commercial, looked real. And so this kind of thing is very important. And there are a lot of choices and the differences out there, and I have a few listed here. I would say there are what we would call Adobe Premiere Pro level of film editing programs. First of all, they are relatively expensive. When I say they're relatively expensive, I mean hundreds of dollars. And in the case of Adobe products, you're many hundreds of dollars for a subscription every year. So it's a major commitment. And then some of these are not going to be in the sense subscription services, and so they're going to be free in the sense of everything on the internet that's actually free, which isn't, because you still have to pay for the computer and the internet and all that. But there are programs like that. And so Adobe Premiere is at that upper level of cost. The Camtasia is one that's extremely popular, and it is less expensive. It's still a subscription service. You still pay every year for your updates and everything, but it's a lot less expensive than maintaining Adobe products. Then there are programs like iMovie, OpenShot, Windows Movie Maker. All of these are either very low cost or come with the computer, like iMovie comes on every Mac computer, and they're what I would call perfectly adequate for doing this kind of a video. If you are watching videos carefully and critically, and you see them online, you will see many types of transitions, changes, effects, different things that happen in a video that you are not going to be able to reproduce with some of the free programs without paying for the pro version or whatever. But if you start out with a basic program that has a large number of video effects and things, then you'll be better up on it. And there's a learning curve. You're going to have to learn how to use these programs. Now, there are very simple programs on the smartphones that can make a quick little video of something, and some of them have some relatively interesting effects. There's one called Adobe Rush from Adobe, and these are much less expensive, and there are others quite a few others out there. And there's a vast list. As you do a search online for video editing software, it's a long list of programs. So there's a point here in which you have to start learning and understanding the process of what you're trying to accomplish. If you're going to make a movie that starts with an opening of your family farm or whatever, and then transitions to an interview with your aunt, or then it goes to something else. As you move through that kind of transition period, doing that when you have the clips and the still images and the video that you've created and putting it together into a seamless sequence is exactly what the video editing software does. So that's why it's important to get involved enough in this process to learn one of the programs. And once you learn one of the programs, by the way, you've learned the basics for almost all the programs. All it does is get more sophisticated and more programming rather than choosing items off of a menu. So at one end, there's menu-driven programs, and at the other end of the spectrum, like with Adobe Premiere Pro, those are more like programming, like you're learning a programming language and writing a program to run a video. So you can also find videos on YouTube that teach you every step of the way. Here's a link to one called Create Captivating Family Video History Videos. It's by Lisa Louise Cook, and she has been doing this kind of instruction for years and has lots of videos online. So if you need a good example of family history videos, you probably could go here and get some good ideas. So now you're down to the nitty-gritty, and this is the part where you write the clip-by-clip script, literally writing down every word that's spoken in the video, not just necessarily if you have a video clip of an interview, you may want to edit that clip, and that's another problem that you get video. If you want, I want just this part of the video, then that's where the video editing programs come in. They let you pick out the exact quote area that you want and stick it into your own video so that you have a transition and a continuity from the transition that you've created. So this is your storyboard, your clip-by-clip script, and it's absolutely necessary. And as I mentioned, my way of doing it, which is not necessarily the only way to do it, by the way, but is very much probably in the vast majority of the people producing videos, is the script comes first. Now, the idea, the gathering of the data of the assets and getting the overall structure of what you want to accomplish is obviously necessary. But here's where that all comes together, and you say, I want to go from this picture to this picture, and this is what's going to be said when I go to this picture and this picture. And there's some rules out there. And if you want to see how it works in absolutely flawless kind of thing, watch one of these Ken Burns movies. You don't have to watch the whole thing. They're hours and hours long. If you want to or are interested, that's fine. But here you're not watching it for the content of it, but you're watching it for how Ken Burns has kind of revolutionized video making by creating movement and animation and involvement and transitions. In fact, the whole idea of Ken Burns being able to go into and creating camera movement on a still image and focusing in on an element in the still image is called the Ken Burns effect. That's what it's called. So if you need an absolute total example of what is successful and how it works and how to manage your video, there's no better example out there today, because this is what's created the whole idea of how these work. And so just for an interesting process, when you're watching anything, the next time you get on to watch a video or a movie or something, or any kind of production on a video, live or not otherwise. So except for headshots, and what classifies as a headshot is where it focuses on one individual while they talk. And that can go on for interminably. In other words, that's not something that's going to keep changing. Because as long as that person is going to say, but if it's a video production and not just a narrative, then you're going to find exactly the same thing. And this is something that's very interesting to learn about as you watch it. When you become aware of the transitions, that's any time that the camera angle or the emphasis or what is on the screen at the time changes to something else. That transition only lasts less than 15 seconds and generally 10 seconds or less. You may think that's impossible. It never happened. The answer is yes. And what happens is, as you're watching this video, is you go 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, or however you want to count seconds, or watch your watch. And you'll see that inevitably the camera has been on this image or this person's face or this car or this action image or whatever. And in 10 seconds or less, you'll be at a different image. Okay, that's what the core of making movies flow and doing continuity. Now, what about educational videos? What if you're trying to show somebody how to do something? That doesn't count. This is not a 10-second thing, but looking at it from different angles may create more interest. So there's a way to do that. What happens with you making original videos is that you'll find out that the time and the resources and what you've allocated to this particular video may not be able to make it up to that particular level. You may have to use all still images, particularly if you're using photographs that's all you have in your collection or whatever, and you have no relatives to interview. So it may all be images, but then you can use camera movement by doing transitions. And that's what these video editing programs allow you to do. They allow you to do the things like the Ken Burns effect and all of that. So they're valuable tools, and they do take some time and effort to learn. So here, even if your soundtrack is longer, you should change the scene and incorporate movement at every 10 seconds. So even though you may be narrating, if you're going to narrate, and what's become the rule now is if you're focusing on one picture and it goes longer than 10 seconds, then pan in come into the photo and zoom in on an object, or go up and down, or do something to make their movement and change so that it creates an image watching. And if you want to get more technical about movie making procedure, you can actually do, and this is attribution here of where this came from. If you want to get more, use a storyboard. The storyboard is exactly what it is. It's a sketch or drawing or outline of every one of the images. And so between these different boxes is when the image changes. And each one of these is going to be about 10 seconds long. Now, think about that. And then think about what I said earlier about spending most of the time coming up with the images and working through how the images are going to be presented. And then you'll understand why that takes the most time of what's going on. So now you start actually editing your video. You trim your clips down, your video clips, you put them in order, load them into the video editing program in the order that you want. You match those to whatever narration you have, and you add transitions between the screens and any titles or headings or dates or identification or arrows or whatever else that you're adding to your video. And you can use the captions or titles to provide the context or highlight important details. Also put textual information on the screen. And this is another function of these video editing programs. They may or may not have a sophisticated way to add animated text or text that moves in or zooms out or disappears or whatever, all of those different things. Arrows that come in and show a product or outlines, all of those kinds of things that are part of what's part of now the video editing. If you choose music, now music can be very helpful and can set the scene and create a very compelling video. But on the other hand, it can also become intrusive and distract from the story. The example that I use when I think about movie music or music in the background of a movie is when years and years and years ago when we went to our first Star Wars movie. It was at a place in Phoenix called the Cine Capri, and we stood in line to get in. It was an amazing experience to sit there and watch something that brought to life things that you could have only imagined otherwise. And what's interesting thing about it is a week or so later, after I'd been to the movie, I was listening to the radio and the announcer says, and now we're going to play what has become extremely popular, the theme from Star Wars. And they started with the Star Wars music. At that moment, I realized that I did not even remember that the movie had music. The impact of the images and the storyline had been so compelling that I was totally unaware of the music. That's what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to accomplish great background, great production that people don't even notice because it's not intrusive. So what do we do about sounds, recordings, and everything? Well, everyone who has a computer and it has a microphone on it has the ability to record. And that recording can be done by audacityteam.org, which is usually referred to as Audacity, and it is a free open source digital audio recording program and audio editing software. Guess what? There is another learning curve to learn how to do audio editing and learn how to change and alter the audio and get rid of extraneous sounds and such. And so when I'm doing my videos, I record with a microphone, a real microphone. And I also have earphones So I can cut out any of the extraneous knowledge, hearing that I'm hearing. And then I also use all of the techniques to cut out all the background, the 60 cycle hums and everything that goes on around. It's by the way, quite difficult to find an environment to do your recordings that doesn't have some kind of background noise. So that's something else. That's the actual step of actually doing the recording. After you have it, you need to constantly do this. Process happens many times while you're putting the video together, and that is to review what you've done so far and see what you need to do next and what changes you would like to add to the video. I can say one thing absolutely for sure. Every video that I've ever produced, if I redid it, it would look considerably different. I would do it a completely different way if I did it again. And my process of doing presentations and my process of doing videos has changed. So if you want an interesting object lesson, is go back on YouTube to some of my videos that I did 4 and 5 and 6 years ago, and then look at the ones that I'm doing today and see what kinds of differences there are. And you'll see how your methodology and your images and everything evolve. Just kind of a side note, I just throw this in now that you've seen quite a few images on here. If you go through this video, how many of these images are created by artificial intelligence generated images? And that has turned out to be very helpful to me because of the time involved in finding appropriate images. So I can basically just put in a description of what I want, and it will end up producing an image. If you look at this image, for example, the lower left-hand corner, you'll see a small B, like Bravo, and that means it came from Microsoft's Creator program through Bing. So once you're satisfied with the history video, you can export it in a suitable format and save a backup copy. Make sure you have the copy. Make sure you save the whole video to your device before you start distributing it, because you just may lose it. And make sure that it's in a good format. The most popular format today for saving a video is MP4. The most popular format today for doing audio files is MP3. And there's some variations on that, lots of variations, but you want to stick with the most useful ones. If you have any questions, it's easy to look up video format for YouTube, and then you'll see what needs to be done for the greatest number of videos out there. So also back up any data you use, back up any information, and put all this in the file and make sure that the file has all of your elements in it, and back that up. You need to preserve those. If you ever have a problem and it crashes or you can't get it to work, then you need to have all your elements. You don't want to have to go through it, remake the whole thing. So all of your assets need to go into one folder. Now you can share that video with your family members. You can do it on a gathering or special occasion, upload it, play it on a Zoom meeting or whatever you want to do, and then make it easily to be saved or accessed. If you want to do a lot of videos and your idea is to do a whole series, you may want to have your own YouTube channel, and that's possible. So you might want to get into finding out the requirements for doing a YouTube channel. There's not much, anyone can do that. So I guess I would like to have you enjoy your journey of preserving and sharing your family's legacy. And if it turns out that you decide you want to do a movie, then there are assets and resources online, an overwhelming number of them. And if you have, obviously, if you have questions, there's the BYU Family History Library virtual help desk, and there are people who are adept at making videos and can help with some of the technical questions. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and we'll see if there's any additional questions that we need to answer in the next few minutes. What do you use to create your original images? I use two programs right now. I use Adobe Firefly, which is part of Adobe's. They got different ways to use that with Adobe. And I use Microsoft Creator, which is based on DALL-E. Microsoft's Creator comes out being one of the best right now. I've tried some of the other ones, and the biggest problem I have is it's more difficult to create the images, and the resolution is not sufficient. They're not a good resolution.